Now, to present the award to Patricia Polacco, it is a pleasure to introduce somebody who, without a doubt, knows books. Deidre Donahue is the senior reviewer of books for USA Today and is a good friend of the lab school. Deidre was born and raised on Long Island, but now lives with her family here in Chevy Chase. In addition to her work with our nation's newspaper, Deidre has been published in the Washington Post, People magazine, and Vanity Fair, to name just a few. Deidre, welcome.
Oh, terrific. All righty. Okay. Patricia Polacco. As a child, you had a terrible struggle with reading and math. You were 14 years old before you learned to read. You were sure you were stupid. There was this boy who teased you incessantly. He made you feel even dumber. Finally, one of your teachers figured out what was wrong. He gave you the help you needed to succeed in school. You wrote about him in one of your most beloved children's books. Thank you, Mr. Falker. You were born in Michigan and spent many years living with your grandparents and your mom on a farm in Union City, Michigan. You called that the most magical time in your life and have often said that your babushka, your grandmother, and your other grandparents were some of the most inspirational people in your life. In almost every book you write, there is a very young person who is interacting with an elderly person. There's a real magic of learning that takes place from learning the stories of older folks. As you moved around the United States from Florida to California, you prize the fact that so many of your neighbors came in so many colors and that they didn't share the same religion or ideas. No wonder your children's books reflect on how different people are and yet how very much alike they are. You majored in the fine arts, and the little girl who couldn't learn the way most people do went on to earn a graduate degree and even ended up with a PhD in art history. Drawing, painting, sculpture were important in your life, but it wasn't until you were 41 years old that you started writing children's books. It seemed so natural and basic to you. Coming from a family of gifted storytellers, you found yourself writing stories and drawing to illustrate them. Suddenly, they were books. You were encouraged to join the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, where you learned how to put together a dummy and shape a story into the form of a children's picture book. Then you and your mom visited 16 publishers in 1 week, submitting all your stories to more than one house. By the time you got home the following week, you had sold just about every story. You have gone on to publish over 50 children's books. You are the recipient of numerous literary awards and honors for your books. You have received the Parents' Choice Honors on many occasions. You received the International Reading Association Award along with many regional awards, such as the one from the North Dakota Regional Library for one of our favorites, My Rotten Red-Headed Older Brother. And you received the West Virginia's Children's Book Award for Pink and Say. Notably, you received an award from the Jane Addams Peace Association and the Women's International League for Mrs. Katz and Tush for its message of peace and social justice. Patricia Polacco, the Lab School of Washington, salutes you for moving from the pain of not being able to read yourself to giving millions of people enormous pleasure through your books. You have said that your grandparents could make small things seem like miracles. You bring that same awe and magic in little things to your words and your art. There is a passion that permeates your books, which keeps your readers personally attached and inspired, eagerly waiting where your imagination will take them next.
To say that I am honored would be an understatement. In my family's house, when I was a very small child, the New Year was the greatest celebration within our household and family. We always kept a bowl of honey in the center of our dining room table. Anyone who entered during the New Year tide was asked to take a piece of bread or apple and dip it in the honey and taste. And then my family would remind them, this is the sweetness of the year to come. In my family, there was another cherished tradition. The youngest child was set with a book at about the age of 4, and the family would surround us. This happened to me at the age of 4. They then took some honey and drizzled it on the cover of the book, and then the family recited, "How does these taste?" And the answer was, of course, after I tasted it, "Well, this is sweet." And then the family would say, "Yes, and so is knowledge, but you must chase it through the pages of a book, just like the bee who made the honey." And I remember as a young person so excited at the thought of being able to read. My people were great storytellers, but they were also wonderful readers, and I don't think there is any more meaningful interaction than sitting on the lap of someone you love and having them open a book, and you put your ear next to their breastbone, and as their voice tells the story, it becomes you, and you become the story as well. And I thought, oh, soon I'm going to be able to do this myself. So I fronted up in my time. We didn't learn to read in kindergarten. It was the first grade. And I remember going into class with 26 other little children. All of us were in the Green Circles Reading Club. And then after a time, some of the kids were in the red circles, some of them were in the yellow circles, some of them were in the blue circles. And then I realized I was the only one in the green circles. And I stayed there for the rest of the year. At the age of 6, I figured out I was deeply flawed. There was something very wrong with me. I wasn't like other people, and whatever I was, it was lacking. It wasn't acceptable. Mind you, my family adored me, but that wasn't enough because of the longing that was filling my heart and making me realize that I was substandard. I was advanced from class to class. I don't quite know how, other than I became adept at working the room and tap dancing and doing everything I could to fool my teachers. You see, I didn't want them to know. I didn't want them to know how stupid and dumb I was. So I got all the way, think of this, to my 14th year without being able to read. And during my school career, all those 14 years, I heard the word lazy, unmotivated, dumb. I would have walked across water to do what they wanted me to. Do you think this is something we choose? But in my time, we didn't have experts that understood what they were seeing. And I got further and further behind, and I remember being so depressed at the age of 14, I couldn't see color anymore. I saw everything in shades of gray. And then someone walked in my classroom. I was at Willard Junior High in Berkeley, California. He bounded through the door. It was January. He was a mid-year transfer teacher. Bounded into the room, and he wore bright colors. And what I loved about him is when he talked, he moved his arms, and he was excited, and he was just full of adventure. First thing he did is he put a lamp on the desk. Then he put a rug under his desk. He brought living, growing things and put them on the shelves. He put masters, plates of old masters on the wall, and he played music during class. Very softly. It wasn't loud, and it was usually classical music.